Hello, and welcome to your tutorial on how to make ESY considerations. Let's start by talking about what extended school year is, or ESY. ESY refers to special education and or related services that are provided beyond the normal school year for the purposes of providing a free and appropriate public education for students with disabilities. The justification for extended school year must be supported by objective data and documentation collected and reviewed by the IEP team at the IEP meeting. Not all students with disabilities will be eligible for this additional programming. ESY services are intended to maintain previously learned skills as identified in the current IEP. The purpose of ESY services is not to teach new skills. What ESY is not. ESY is not required just because a student might benefit from the service. It is not mandated for all students with disabilities. It is not intended to teach new skills. It is not summer school. It is not childcare. It is not an opportunity to maximize educational benefits for a student with disabilities. It is not the same program as the one that the student receives during the school year. So it is not a 10-month program offered on a 12-month calendar. It is not automatically provided from year to year. It is not used for credit recovery. It is not a replacement for poor attendance, and it is not necessarily a traditional classroom setting. Let's talk about the areas of eligibility. The first area we're going to speak about is the student regresses or may regress during extended breaks from instruction and cannot relearn the lost skills within a reasonable amount of time. So when you are looking at the extended school year eligibility page and you're making that determination, you're going to see three options. This is the first option that you're going to see in that list. So in order to qualify under this area of eligibility, the student must show significant regression of a previously learned skill as a result of a prolonged lapse in service. Substantial retraining has to be required in order to attain the previous competency. Regression can be an indication of a student's inability to maintain performance or to generalize acquired skills to new settings outside of the instructional environment. Recoupment is the process of regaining skills through the review or reteaching following a scheduled break of instruction. Both of these conditions should be evaluated by the IEP team in determining eligibility for ESY services. So essentially what this means is you are taking data that shows a student has a grasp of a certain concept before a break, but then after they return from the break, they have lost or they have relapsed in those skills. They're seeing a regression. If the student is able to regain that skill in a reasonable amount of time, then this would not be a qualifying area. However, if they are taking an extended amount of time to regain those skills, this would be a good area for eligibility for extended school year. The next area that you're going to see as an option reads, the benefits a student gains during the regular school year will be significantly jeopardized if he or she is not provided with an educational program during extended breaks from instruction. So if a student with disabilities requires a more consistent and highly structured programming technique due to the severity of the disability, the student with disabilities may be more vulnerable to regression when the school program is interrupted. A severely disabled student may revert to a lower functioning level or exhibit more behaviors which would interfere in their learning after a long break in programming. The student would suffer significant losses of skills or behavior in areas deemed to be crucial to reaching their ultimate goal of independence. And the last area of eligibility as an option reads, the student is demonstrating emerging skill acquisition or a window of opportunity that will be lost without the provision of an educational programming during extended breaks from instruction. This would be a critical skill. So a critical skill is one that is determined at the development of the IEP and is realistic in terms of both age and developmental appropriateness. Failure to learn the critical skill could seriously have effect on the student's progress towards self-sufficiency. This is a rare and unusual circumstance that does exist, which would be medical or health related, which will result in the loss of the student's capacity to acquire a critical skill if it's not taught at a particular time. Some examples of that might be the student has a degenerative hearing loss and needs a lot of language intervention as quickly as possible, or perhaps the student has recently gotten a cochlear implant and we are in a sensitive area or a sensitive time when the student could really use that additional programming, and having a break in programming would impact their ability to make meaningful gains, right? So another example might be a student experienced a recent brain trauma and requires services during a spontaneous recovery period. So these are unique circumstances, but they do happen. So it's important to know that they exist. So what do you need to do as a teacher? So you are currently 151 ESY student considerations at Metro. So that's what there are currently at Metro. There is a whole bunch of them. So that's not including those that may arise from now to the end of the year. 3 are complete. So it's really important for us to understand the scope, the gravity, the scope of how many cases there are. So we need to work together to be able to get these completed. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be working together to get this done. So the way this is going to work is you are going to be assigned an EC department LEA for ESY considerations for your class. That EC department LEA is going to reach out to you, and they are going to be your point of contact for extended school year considerations. You will need to let the LEA know of any other meeting purposes that might occur during that extended school year consideration. So what that means is if the student is also due for an annual review, reevaluation, a BIP review, whatever it may be, you need to make sure that you are letting your district contact know so that they're blocking off the appropriate amount of time to be able to complete that meeting with you. And that's okay. If a student is coming up for an annual review, we'll do that annual review with you. You don't have to do extra meetings. We just need to know that the annual review is happening so that we're not going in expecting an addendum and then it turns into a much bigger obligation for time. But we are working with you to get this done and we are here for you. We just need to know ahead of time how much time we need to block off. You want to complete all the drafts and all of the accompanying documents at least 5 days prior to the meeting for a review and by the assigned ESY LEA. So we are going to make sure that you understand the documents that you need to complete, and they need to be done at least 5 days prior to the meeting so that we have a chance to review those documents. And you want to make sure that you are following your email chain with your outside LEA from the district, because we may have different things that we want to do. For example, you may have an outside LEA that just needs you to complete the documents and they don't need to pre-meet with you. You may have me, and I kind of prefer a little bit of a pre-meeting if it's going to be a longer meeting or maybe something a little bit more complicated. Whereas if it's just an addendum, I might not need a pre-meeting for that, right? So keep an eye out on what the expectations are for your EC department LEA as well. All right, so before the meeting, you want to make sure that you are completing the ESY data form and uploading it into ECATS. This is very important. If you schedule a meeting with me and we're supposed to meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. for an ESY consideration, and I go in to check to see if your ESY data form is uploaded and it is not, we are not having that meeting. That ESY data form needs to be completed and uploaded into ECATS. That is something that we are going to be checking. It is your job to make sure that is done at least 5 days prior to the meeting. So if I go in and it's not done the day of or the day before, you have not held up your end of the bargain. So that may result in us having to reschedule the meeting, right? Now, we are reasonable humans. So I might reach out to you and be like, hey, did you forget to upload this? And you said, oh, I forgot to upload it. So sorry, I uploaded it right now. That's okay. We're all human. We all make mistakes. That's not a big deal, but you do need to have that documentation finished. We are not going to hold meetings without having the opportunity to review that documentation ahead of time. Next, you're going to want to create the invitation to conference and send it to the parent with at least 7 days notice. You're going to request an interpreter if needed, and the link right there is going to take you to where you can request an interpreter through the intranet. You're going to send the ESY LEA a calendar invitation with the location information. So you'll title it Metro ESY, student's initials, teacher name, and whether it's in person or virtual. And you're going to make sure that you're including that link for Teams if it is virtual. So you are going to be responsible for coordinating that time with your LEA rep or your district LEA and making sure that you send us the calendar invitation. And like I said, make sure that you are communicating with your outside LEA because they may have specific expectations, like I can only meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like you just want to have that open line of communication. Don't just schedule something and be like, oh, I already have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday at 2 p.m. I might not have availability next Thursday at 2 p.m. and you haven't really given me enough notice to be able to move things around, or maybe I have something that I cannot move around. So just know open line of communication is really, really helpful with that because, if you have something scheduled and there's a bunch of people already involved and you can't move it, I can work with my team to try and get coverage for me. So it's just really important for us to keep those open lines of communication. And then you're going to want to draft that IEP with any other needed documentation in ECAT. So if we're doing an annual review, I am not going to hold an annual review without looking at the documentation first. That is just, as an LEA, that is my force of habit. I will be doing that. So um, the same rules will apply to your reevaluation documentation, your eligibility documentation. If I'm going to be your LEA for the meeting, whether I'm just your ESY rep or not, if I'm serving as LEA, I will need to review all your documentation at least 5 days prior to the meeting. Once all of that is done, you're going to email your LEA when all of the drafts are completed and the data is ready for review in ECATS. And then you're going to be good to go. We're going to be hot to trot. So here are some things that I really want you to focus on. IEP drafts for ESY addendums. So for the addendum, you're going to have your meeting purpose set to addendum. The start date is going to be 1 day after the IEP meeting, and the end date is going to remain the same. If it's needed, you can update the student profile with strengths, parent concerns, and vision for the future. For goals, you're going to make sure that you click the ESY box for any goal areas that are going to be worked on during ESY. I specifically want to just press on this. You are only clicking the areas that they're going to be working on during ESY. So typically what you'll find there is math and reading. If they do not qualify for ESY for speech or OT, which typically they don't, you will know if they do. Do not make that determination without consulting with their special area first. So like their OT, their PT, their SLP. You want to make sure that you are consulting with those service providers before you make that decision. We are not qualified to make that decision alone. I will say this, if you get into a meeting with me and you have clicked that they're getting speech during ESY and I don't see data open or something to review, or if your speech path is not sitting in the meeting with us, that is not something that we are going to make a determination for. It's either going to hold us up and we're going to have a meeting on a different date, or we are going to unclick that just as easy as we clicked it. Because without data, we're not making any determinations for ESY. All right, so for the ESY page itself, you're going to click the box at the top of the page that says to print. You're going to select the qualifying area, those areas that we reviewed above, and the same area that you made the determination on the ESY data form. So that's what we're looking at to make this determination, right? All right, and then you're going to make the ESY decision date the date of the meeting, and the start date is going to be June 22nd, 2026, end date July 30th, 2026. I apologize for it saying 2025. Your ESY special education services are going to be same as the goal areas you clicked, and you're going to leave the number of sessions blank, and the length of the session should total 300 minutes. ESY for related services, we talked about that a little bit a second ago, but you can't say it too many times. So this should be updated by the appropriate service providers. And if it is recommended in those areas, we are not updating those things without the consultation of the service provider. You're going to draft the IEP, and you're going to let us know that it's drafted. Drafts for other purposes that include ESY. If it's an annual review, you're going to make sure you're drafting it as an annual review and you're setting the purpose as annual review. You're going to email that LEA when it is drafted and ready for review. For reevaluation and annual review, it's going to be the same thing. Draft that reevaluation or eligibility paperwork as needed. Draft that annual review, include the ESY information, and email the LEA when the draft is ready for review. And during the meeting, these are your obligations. You're going to make sure that you're sharing your screen if it's virtual, even if it's in person, but you're going to make sure that the teacher and gen ed, your LEA, your parents, everybody who's involved in the meeting, they can see what's going on your screen. You're going to lead the team through the IEP process, and you're going to finalize all the ECATS documents. After the meeting. So after the meeting, ensure the team completes all needed information and forms with the parent and LEA present. So we are going to have a document, a form that we fill out, and we want to make sure that we do not end the meeting without completing that document because there's information that we need from the parent in that document. You're going to include information such as P&As, nursing, or other special circumstances. You're going to include the days of the week that the student will attend, and you're going to upload all signature pages and ESY documentation to ECATS, including the student information form. You're going to send parent copies of all IEP documents to include the FAQ ESY for parents. So that document right there, the FAQs, you're going to send those home as well. All right. And if you have any additional questions about any of the information we talked about today, you are going to want to directly reach out to your assigned ESY LEA. You have Mary Allen's information here, Jennifer Cobble as well. Those are your points of contact, your EPECCTs for Metro School. However, in this circumstance, please reach out to your assigned ESY LEA first, because like I said, we all might do things a little bit different. I might want to send you a calendar invitation because I want to send them out. I like to get my schedule all done ahead of time. I might want to pre-meet on certain students and not other students. So we are working together. So if you are assigned me, it is you and I working together to complete these meetings. We are a team, we're a partnership in this. So absolutely reach out to Mary Allen and Jennifer Codwell if you have any kind of general questions, but otherwise go ahead and wait for your ESY LEA to reach out to you. And we are so excited to work with you and get this done, work as a team. I hope that you found this helpful. And like I said, if you have any additional information or questions, any information that you need that was not covered in this presentation, these guidance points, please reach out to your assigned ESY district LEA. Thank you. Incoming. Bye.